Have you ever seen one of those shows where they restore a classic car? They pour hundreds of hours into sanding, welding, and painting. But then comes the most important part, that final obsessive inspection before they can call it perfect. Well, in the world of cybersecurity, that same critical inspection has a name: penetration testing. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. So the person who wrote our source material, he actually worked in a body shop. He talks about his boss, Rob, and this guy was a perfectionist. I mean, picture this. He's on his hands and knees, literally crawling around the car, running his hands over every surface, pointing out the tiniest flaw that nobody else saw. It was that insane level of detail that guaranteed a perfect car every single time.
Okay, so let's take that idea and just swap out a few things. Instead of a car, we've got a company's entire computer network. And instead of a mechanic, you've got an ethical hacker. And that super intense final check, the one to find all the little flaws before the bad guys can, yep, that's a penetration test. Or, as you'll hear it called, a pen test. All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start in our digital body shop. Then we'll clear up the difference between an assessment versus a test. After that, we'll get into the all-important rules of the game, take a look at a hacker's three-phase playbook, and finally see what goes into the final report card. Let's get to it. Okay, first up, your digital body shop. We're sticking with this analogy because it's just so perfect, right? A pen test is all about that last super detailed inspection. You've got to find those tiny dings and scratches in your digital defenses before they turn into a total wreck down the road. And that leads us right into something really, really important. Assess versus test. To really get what a pen test is, you first have to understand what it isn't. Because let's be real, not all security checkups are created equal. So check out this table. It lays it all out pretty clearly. A security audit, think of it as a paperwork drill. Are you following the rules you set for yourself? Then you have a vulnerability assessment. This is more like an automated scan that looks for potential weak spots, like checking for unlocked windows. But the penetration test, that's the main event. Here, the hacker doesn't just find the unlocked window, they actually try to climb through it. And there are really two flavors of this. You've got automated testing, which is super fast and pretty cheap. It's like using a machine to scan for problems, but it can give you false alarms or miss things entirely. Then there's manual testing. This is the human element. It's where a real person, with all their creativity and cleverness, tries to outsmart your system. And honestly, that's where the real value is. It's what gives the client the best possible picture of their security. Okay, so you've hired someone to try and break into your digital house. Sounds great. But you can't just hand them a crowbar and say good luck. Which brings us to a critical part, the rules of the game. Because trust me, a pen test without crystal clear rules, well, it can turn into an absolute disaster. And I'm not just talking theory here. We've got a real story for you. What happens when a test, a fully authorized test, goes completely sideways? Let's rewind to 2012. The city of Tulsa hires a firm to do a pen test. They've got the contracts, everything signed. But when the test actually starts, the city's own chief information officer thinks it's a real cyber attack, chaos. They start shutting down servers, they bring in emergency consultants to the tune of over 25 grand. And get this, they end up sending out 90,000 data breach warning letters to citizens, all for a test that they paid for. So what's the lesson here? It's pretty clear, right? That signed agreement, that contract, it's not just a get-out-of-jail-free card for the testers. It is everything. It has to spell out the scope, the limits, and exactly who talks to whom and when. It is literally the only thing standing between getting useful security advice and causing a citywide meltdown. All right, so assuming we have our rules in place and nobody's panicking, what does the actual test look like? Let's dive into a hacker's three-phase playbook. Because believe it or not, there's a real method to this madness. It all breaks down into three main phases, and they line up perfectly with our body shop analogy. First, you have the pre-attack phase. This is the inspection. The hackers are just looking around, gathering info, scanning for open ports, basically jiggling the doorknobs. Then comes the attack phase. This is the actual bodywork. They try to get inside and then escalate their privileges. What that means is they might start with a tiny bit of access, maybe like a guest account, and then try to work their way up to become the all-powerful system administrator. Finally, you have the post-attack phase. This is the cleanup. They pack up all their digital tools, delete their files, and put everything back exactly how they found it, like they were never there. Okay, that brings us to our last section, and honestly, this might be the most important part of the entire process. See,
The real goal of a pen test isn't just the, aha, I got in moment. The real gold, the whole point of it all, is what you get at the end, the final report card.
And our source material has this fantastic quote that just nails it. A crappy team with a great report will be seen by customers as better than a great team with a crappy report. Think about that. All the cool hacking stuff doesn't matter if you can't explain what you did and why it matters. For a pen tester, the report is the product.
So what's actually in this all-important report? Well, you'll have an executive summary right at the top, something the CEO can understand. It'll list who was on the team and the exact dates of the test. Then, the real meat, a list of every single finding ranked from fix this now to this is less urgent. And for each finding, you get a detailed analysis, step-by-step instructions on how to fix it, and all the evidence, like screenshots and log files to back it all up.
So in the end, that report is more than just a piece of paper. It's a roadmap. It's the client's blueprint for making their entire network stronger and way more secure. It's not about pointing fingers, it's about providing solutions. And that really leaves us with one final question for you to think about. You've got firewalls, you've got strong passwords, your digital doors are locked. But have you ever actually hired an expert to see if they can pick the lock?